I'm over Box, welcome to Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid. A while ago I did a video looking at the Sweets albums, and it's mostly focused on the first album through to On the Record. And although I looked at the other albums after that, I kind of neglected them a bit. The Polydor albums from Level Headed through to Identity Crisis. So what I thought I'd do today is look at those Polydor albums, but also make a few corrections and just address a few things that I probably didn't cover in the original video. The first two big errors I made was I said the name Phil Wainwright as the guy who kind of managed and discovered the Sweet Up and got him in contact with a label and Chin and Chapman and stuff like that. But it was Phil Wainman, like I just misremembered it, so apologies about that. And for some reason I always thought it was Steve Priest who did the high falsetto, and in actual fact is Andy Scott. And in the piece I kind of focused on the backing vocals a lot because I think they're amazing, obviously. I kind of neglected to say stuff about Brian Connolly. And I kind of took for granted that, you know, people would assume that obviously I thought Brian Connolly was great. So I'm just kind of saying here that Brian Connolly is one of my favourite rock singers of all time. And actually I just made a little list of rock singers starting with Robert Plant from that era. So, you know, Brian comes in the era after Plant, Gillan, Ozzy, David Byron. I see those sort of guys as the kind of the four singers singing in rock, metal, hard rock, heavy rock bands. And Brian's kind of the part of the next generation. Sorry, please excuse my pronunciation there. You know, you got Phil Mogg and Phil Lynott, David Coverdale, Glenn Hughes, Dan McCafferty. Actually, maybe say McCaffrey kind of goes back a bit before that. And over in America, you've got guys like Steven Tyler, Sammy Hagar, and some that you might not be aware of, but Derrickson Holmes, Ted Nugent singer, great singer. And I think Brian basically can sit in with any of those singers. He's got that ballsy rock voice, but he's also got that pastoral quality that he uses on ballad tracks, like a track like Laurel Lee or something like that. And that's something that gives him a really unique quality. And it steps him out of being merely a vocalist and puts him firmly into a singer category. So a vocalist to me is someone who's got one sound to the voice, and that's what you get. Ozzy Osbourne will be an example of that. A singer has that instrument and it can change the voice, manipulate it more and get different qualities out there. And Brian, you know, you can definitely hear that. Why don't I think he gets always remembered as much when you're talking about these singers? And I think Noddy Holder is someone who you would put as a bedfellow there. Noddy Holder's a great singer in Slade, but again, Slade, like the Sweets, are probably tarnished a little bit with that bubblegum image, having been popular in the pop charts. And then people wouldn't immediately think of Noddy Holder or Brian Connolly as kind of serious rock singers, but they are. Obviously, Noddy Holder was kind of linked with the AC/DC gig. So I just kind of think the kind of genre they're in, which is playing rock music but for a pop audience, kind of, you know, works against them. So that's just to say that, you know, Brian, brilliant singer, one of my favourites of all time. Another thing I mentioned, Desolation Boulevard, I said it was released in 1975, it wasn't, it was November 74. So the Sweet released two classic albums in 1974, Sweet Fanny Adams and Desolation Boulevard. Its US release was 1975, I think it had a different cover. So that was just to cover that. The other thing I didn't cover in the original thing was Strung Up, and some people had sort of mentioned about that. The reason I didn't cover Strung Up, I didn't have a copy of it, but more to the point, it's a compilation album, a live album, and I was dealing with the studio albums. I did get a copy since then, there you go. Quite nifty packaging this. It's like a remaster, it's only like £7. I'll just show you that. Hopefully this lines up okay. But really nice reproduction of the artwork. And what was interesting about this was how it's basically one side's live and the other side's a compilation CD. And when I put on the live album, there's a few bonus tracks. It's got a bonus track of Teenage Rampage, bonus track of Blockbuster, and bonus track of the Ballroom Blitz. So I think what's interesting there, those bonus tracks are Chin and Chapman tracks. The original vinyls only had 7 tracks on. There is Chin and Chapman tracks on there, but the heavy tracks, and I'm guessing some of them are written, most of them are written by the band, certainly Someone Else Will and Rock and Roll Disgrace and things like that. I think the idea of this is to show that the Sweet, we are a proper rock band, we can play live, we can write our own songs, and yeah, it's really raw, it's very untouched Up compared to Strange in the Night by UFO, certainly Unleashed the East by Judas Priest, or Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy. You know, it really does sound like it's just come straight off the monitor mix, off the desk, sorry, and the monitors. Yeah, it just shows the band, it's kind of warts and all, it shows the band can cut it live. You know, sometimes the harmonies are a little off pitch, but there would be, especially back then with without in-ear monitors and things like that. And it really shows that the band's a raucous live band. The second CD, again, my version's got bonus tracks on. It's got Lies in Your Eyes, Fever of Love, Teenage Rampage, I'm Going to Be Committed, Hellraiser. Again, it's got like Chin and Chapman tracks, but it's got tracks by the band and it's heavier tracks. So again, I think it's there to demonstrate we can write our own songs and we're a heavy, hard rocking band. By this time in 1975, you know, the band's trying to step out of their glam rock pop image, and also they're making a firm assault on the States, so the Desolation Boulevard album goes gold in the States. And I think the tour with Rainbow, or maybe there's some dates with Deep Purple, I can't remember. But anyway, I think this comes out later on in the States, but in Britain as well, there's no album released in 1975 apart from this one. So again, that's kind of keeping stuff flowing while the band's in the States. Obviously, it won't be till 76 that they do give us a wink. And this, the kind of selection of tracks on this that are heavier, and the live thing basically gives a kind of hint that you know, they're going to be going in a more serious direction. So that's the Strung Up album. So what I actually got myself this nifty little box set, the Suite, the Polydor albums. Really cool, and it's just a box set, and it's got the 4 albums in slipcases with a cool sleeve notes. So what actually happened, Sweet signed a £1 million deal with Polydor. So I'm guessing the advance, let's say, was £250,000 per album. So this is back in, 77, 78. So, you know, I would say they would be getting about an advance per album of about £1 million to £1.5 million, something like that in today's money. So it was good money. Obviously at this time things are coming to head with Brian. So weirdly enough, on the Level Headed album, which is the first one they did, you can see that the band's got this strange image just with the t-shirts. You know, Brian's hair doesn't look very blonde. They're just obviously trying to play down the glam rock thing. The US cover's much better for this. It's obviously by the same artist who does Off the Record. I really like that. I hope you can see that. The Level Head, that's a great cover with the tape heads. That's in the sleeve booklet for this box set. And what's weird about this album, it starts on with Dream On, which is a piano ballad written by Andy Scott and sung by him. And I think this shows the kind of lie of the land a bit, that Andy's taking more control. Brian, obviously sometimes he might be variable, the condition he's in the studio due to his alcohol problems. I don't think it's a great opener. I think it's a mistake, and in fact I wouldn't put this on the album. I'll come to that. Second track's Love Is Like Oxygen. I actually always preferred the 7-inch version of this. So I'm not as into like the 6-minute 50 version that's on the album, the kind of proggy version. But again, it shows the band stretching out. It's a great track. I think Brian came in the morning to do the vocal on this. I was watching a video Andy Scott has on the Sweet channel, which is well worth checking out, the Sweet YouTube channel. Lots of info on there and cool videos. And he said Brian came in, like he wasn't sure what kind of condition he'd been, but he was fine and he nailed it in 30 minutes. Just did a couple of takes. Next track's California Nights. This is good, obviously aiming at the US market. Nice sort of acoustic-y, very upbeat, really like it. And then Strong Love's the next track's very funky. It's got great cascading harmonies on this, where they kind of they're kind of coming over each other and crescendo at the end. Quite complicated to mix that, I would imagine. But really good. And then Fountain finished original side 1, which is an Andy Scott track, I think. Well, he certainly sings it. Brian actually plays a big jumbo acoustic on the videos, kind of several promo videos for this. And this is a nice track. Again, good vocal from Andy. Kind of more, like I said, more folksy, poppy. I would say, if I was looking at this album stylistically, the band's kind of sitting more within this ELO 10cc sort of school of rock. It's not as heavy, obviously, as Give Us a Wink and then Off the Record. It's a heavier album, but you can hear more kind of lighter elements coming in on that album, and this, you know, it is a rock album, a rock band, but that's the sort of vibe I get off it. Side 2 albums with Anthem, number 1, Lady of the Lake again, another really good track. Nice. This one has got a harpsichord on it. I'm just checking. It's got a nice 12 string. That's it. Excuse my notes here. Really good track. And then you got Silver Bird, which again is kind of a bit like California Nights, Fountain, you know. Really cool sort of inverted chord riff. Nice poppy track. I think there's a video for this. And then Let Us Do More, which is another really good track. So this, again, is using Brian's kind of, like I was saying before, that pastoral quality he has to his vocal, kind of slightly folksy. And Stevie Lang does the sings on the chorus on this. Now, Stevie Lang is the former wife of Mutt Lang, a record producer. She's a great section singer, and she did her own solo stuff. In this country, this is weird, but this is UK, I would say she's best known to people who wouldn't know necessarily it's her unless you researched it, is an advert for a hairspray called Lamara back in the very early 80s, and a great rock song by her called Remember My Name, and she retracked it with Lamara, and her vocals absolutely storming on this track, nothing like it is on Let Us Do More. Well worth checking out, but great set of pipes. And then you've got Anthem number 2, which is just a little a harpsichord piece. That's it. Harpsichord is used on Fountain at the end, again giving it that you know, kind of medieval sound. And then there's Air on an A tape loop at the end, which is an instrumental. Again, it's okay. It shows the band progging out a bit. Again, I suspect Andy, Steve, Mick have maybe sort of taken more control here. On the album, there's bonus tracks. There's Love Is Like Oxygen 7-inch version, Cover Girl, California Nights 7-inch version, and Show Me the Way. Now I would certainly put Cover Girl on this album and lose the last track, actually, or lose Dream on. It needs a rocky, upbeat track. I think Cover Girl would fit the bill. This was a B-side of Love Is Like Oxygen. Like I said I prefer the 7-inch version of Love Is Like Oxygen. Show Me the Way is not as good, but again, it's better than Air on a tape loop. Just my opinion, you know, so I think this album's kind of like a 6, 7 out of 10. With those tracks and a reworking, to me, it would certainly give it a solid 7. So not in the league of the previous albums. Obviously, it's better than Funny How Sweet Cocoa Can Be. But, you know, probably, you know, the band are in that difficult situation when they're not having hits and they're trying to reinvent themselves. But obviously, Love Is Like Oxygen is a hit in the UK and kind of saves the bacon. That's probably my first exposure to the Sweet when I was a kid. So anyway, that's the Level-Headed album. So the next one is Cut Above the Rest. There we go. So the band become a 3-piece. Basically, Brian leaves. They have some dates, I think. He does some of the dates, but his drinking's getting in the way of the performance, and he's not capable of doing it. And obviously, that's, you know, could affect the band's standing. So they part up with Brian and they go as a 3-piece. There's a different cover for the European version of this, which isn't very good. It's a bad like picture. Steve Priest doesn't look anything like Steve. What I think of this album, obviously they're in a difficult situation. Let's get to my notes. You know, you've lost your singer. I think the first pop call is like how good, you know, Andy and Steve in particular are really good singers. Steve's very good. At times he sounds like Brian a bit. What they lack is that they've got one way of singing. They haven't got that kind of range, that, you know, singer quality that I was talking about with Brian before. Mick obviously is doing the backing vocals. I know he sings a lead on something. I can't remember what. Sorry. On the video for the first track, Call Me, I've looked at Steve has a really bad tash actually, and not a good look. But yeah, so Call Me, Play All Night, a good openers. I like them. I think the band produced this. Yeah, Lewis Austin engineers again. He's done quite a lot of rock stuff. And the band, yeah, they do good. The kind of sound of these is very kind of clean. It's kind of preempting the 80s sound of production. They're quite ahead of the curve really there. So it starts with a couple of really good tracks. I'm not into Big Apple Waltz, which is the third track. You got Dorian Gray, which is stompy, a kind of stompy riff, boom, boom. I quite like that. And Discophony's kind of grown on me. It's a kind of anti-disco song, which is strange, writing a kind of disco-y type track, but then saying you don't like the disco, but anyway. The original side 2 opens with Eye Games. That's a weird little ditty. I'm not really into that. And then there's Mother Earth. This is probably the best track on the album. It uses the Lydian mode. It's quite proggy. It's got a really kind of jazzy chords. It picks up tempo at the end. Yeah, it's kind of an epic sort of sweet track. Really good. And then the next track is Hold Me. Again, got more of a stompy beat to this. Really good vocal. I think it's Andy singing. Good harmonies. And then finish with Stay With Me, which is alright. The bonus tracks on this, a track called Why Don't You, which is alright, and then it's just edited versions of tracks on the album. Yeah, so I mean, I'd give this, my mark was kind of like a 5 out of 10. It's, it's just missing a bit of identity. It's missing kind of classic tracks, but it's kind of missing enough good tracks. But it's not, not without merit. These guys know how to write songs. I haven't forgotten how to do that. Sorry, just going on to my next sheet. And looking, this released August 1980. This is Water's Edge. There we go. Quite a cool cover, like a kind of black and white TV screen by the water. Those are the kind of types of TVs we had back in the late 70s, early 80s. So this opens with a track 60s Man. This is quite, I imagine it was a hit in Germany, something like that. It's co-written with Pete Williams. 60s Man, Getting in the Mood for Love. They're good tracks. Open the album. Tell the Truth's next, which is a kind of funky track, which I like. Own Up, Take a Look at Yourself, which is good, it's quite catchy. And then Too Much Talking's pretty catchy. It's pretty strong, what I'm guessing was side 1. The next track's Thank You for Loving Me, is alright. And then At Midnight, this is probably the best track on the album. I'd heard this quite a few years ago before hearing this whole album. Yeah, that's a really good track. Just point out the band, you can see there, they've got really dodgy perms on the front. Gone to the Kevin Keegan, he's a footballer. School of Perm, then you got Water's Edge, which is pretty good. Hot Shot Gambler, and Give the Lady Some Respect. I'm not really fussed with those that finished the album. Again, I kind of feel the same way I do about this as I do Cut Above the Rest. I think Cut Above the Rest may be better. I'd give this 4.5, 5 out of 10. Again, it's got that sort of clean production. Pip Williams has produced a couple of tracks, but again, it's the band mostly working on their own. Lewis Austin engineering again. I'm not sure where it was recorded. It's just difficult. The general feeling at the time is that the band's just kind of struggling to get a kind of style, a sort of sound, without Brian. Actually, Water's Edge was called Sweet. The US covers it Sweet 6, I think. I'm just looking at here. I don't know why it's number 6. But anyway, there's a different cover for the US Canada version, which isn't very good. So just moving on from that to their final album, Identity Crisis, of what was left of the original lineup. There's the cover. This, I would say, funnily enough, strangely, this was actually finished by sort of mid-81. It didn't get a UK release for a long time, I think. It was only originally released in Germany and Mexico via Polydor Records. I'm guessing it came out US later and the UK. And the band had split up by the time it was released in the UK. It's only 33 minutes long, so you can see the band's probably struggling. There may be a contractual obligation to make the album. It's actually the best one. The production is better, and Identity Crisis, that opens the album, is one of the best tracks of this era of the band. Really good. Then there's New Shoes, which has got a strange low vocal in the verse, which I like. Then 2 into 1's quite interesting. It's a bit sort of pop punk, a bit new wave, a bit kind of like Devo element, or The Cars, with quite a funny kind of chorus. Talking Heads, I suppose that kind of vibe. Then there's Love Is the Cure. It Makes Me Wonder is another track which reminds me of The Cars a bit. So they're obviously kind of listening, again, trying to adapt their sound to what's been going on in music. But I like it. It's got a rocky. It's got kind of more rock to this, but with a pop new wave element. Hey Mama opened the original side too, which is quite catchy, and then Falling in Love, which is probably the best tune on the album. This is like, along with Identity Crisis, this is a really good rocker. It's kind of AC/DC-ish almost. It's quite interesting because Slade were a band who got like a bump off the new wave of British heavy metal in this country, pardon me. So what happened with Slade was they were back in the clubs and things weren't going well for them from about 1975-76 to 1980. And then they got booked for the last minute for the Reading Festival, which in 1980 had a load of metal bands on. Obviously Slade Live are a heavy band and heavy tracks. They went down a storm, and then he did a couple of albums, We'll Bring the House Down and Till Death Do Part. Till Death Do Part, the track called Lock Up Your Daughters on it. Which was covered by a metal band called Lion, an LA metal band. But anyway, it's quite heavy, and they kind of were trying to sit in. They kind of had a bit more leather on, and they were trying to sit in with the heavy music at the time, and it worked. And if the Sweet had Brian still in the band and could catch the wave, a track like Falling in Love is a kind of example of a heavier track. If they'd made an album that was more that kind of music with Brian in about 81. Because they're influential on the new Wobbin bands like Def Leppard and so on. They could have, you could have imagined them getting on at the Wedding Festival or Castle Donington or something like that, and getting a new audience of heavy music fans. But that didn't happen, obviously, because they weren't. Brian wasn't around. They lost the profile. And they weren't in a direction that would work with that. But this track, Falling in Love, is an example like that would have worked a treat. Kind of Windy City, there's a really heavy track. I Wish You Would, it's Throwaway, and then Strange Girl. So the album tails off, but I think up until then, I think it's a solid record, 6 out of 10. So yeah, that's it. I think the only other thing on the previous video I didn't mention that is my favourite compilation of the Sweet is an album called Sweet 16. So there's lots of compilations out there and you can't get it on CD. But I actually burned myself a CD, and I'll give you the running order now. Side 1 was Alexander Graham Bell, Papa Joe, Little Willie, Wigwam Band, Blockbuster, Hellraiser, Ballroom Blitz, Teenage Rampage. So that was the first 8 tracks. And this is my introduction to the Sweet in 1984. My brother bought it. And side 2 is Rebel Rouser, quite an unusual choice, but I always love that track. The 16s, Fox and Lauren, Action, Lies in Your Eyes, Stairway to the Stars, Lost Angels, and the original 7-inch of Love Is Like Oxygen. So this is quite well at the time in the UK and got the band a bit more notice again. And they reformed the next year, the year after, for gigs at the Marquee and so forth. Not with Brian, though. But anyway, that's a really cool compilation. Like I said, it's worth burning those tracks to a disc and having that as a cool compilation. I actually added Turn It Down and Fear of Love on as well, because I thought those would kind of fit in with that. So that's just a little tidbit there. If you wanted to do yourself a compilation, that's one that I always liked more than any other compilation. So hopefully I've covered all the stuff I intended to. I will share this with the original video I did. And I'll put any other Sweets related stuff in there. And please share and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks very much. Bye now. Cheers.